What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at SoundHound AI stock, ticker symbol SOUN, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Monday, April 1st. Alright guys, so SoundHound stock here on Thursday, the last trading day of the week, down just 4 cents a share, minus 0.67%. Essentially a flat day given SoundHound's recent volatility. It is essentially flat in the after hours here, so nothing to be concerned with there. Let's take a look here at the name and pull out as much bias as we possibly can. Let's look through the data that the charts are giving us, like the volume profile, the psychological levels, and the areas that I think we're going to see traders making the most amount of decisions, okay? And then we'll also take a look at the expected move and the bias out of the chain. So let's get started here. Let's do our daily ritual, the volume profile analysis here on the 5-minute chart. The moves I'm primarily interested in, I want to look at that pop, and then we'll also include that drop off the open. That's really about it here in terms of volume profile today. And you guys, if you're a little bit newer here, first of all, please subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. My goal here is to hit 10,000 by the end of April. And, subscribing, I'll do my best to continue to provide you free value every day. Tremendously helpful when you do hit that button, and I'll keep the videos coming. But what we're looking to do here really is pull out some bias that may not be so obvious simply by looking at the price action. So, again, if you're new here, pulling back a layer of the onion is how I like to think about looking at the volume profile. Because we can look at the price action all day, and we can just assume that, okay, this first move had a bullish bias and the fade had a bearish bias. Believe it or not, it's commonly not the case. And the volume profile gives us a much better understanding into the actual strength or weakness of those moves. With an obvious sentiment, just looking at the price action, we get more in-depth information about that move. So if we pull this up here, remember, it also has to be out of context. Okay, so listen, on this pop that we saw off the open, we saw that contextual, high volume opening bar, but we did see the volume really 15 minutes into the day remain elevated a little bit above what I would consider to be contextual here on SoundHound, because we typically end up seeing that fade occur very quickly immediately after that first opening bar. We held on to a little bit of volume as the stock continued to push higher off the open. So that certainly supports a little bit of a bullish bias in the profile, but that did, that faded down. That kind of died down relatively quickly after the first 15 minutes or so of the open were up. Now, you may notice that as we came into that intraday high, this area here, right, we did see some increased volume here. However, this is a battle candle, because it's the intraday high, and there are a lot of wicks on that candle, or there's a top wick, right? That tells me that this isn't just purely selling volume coming in. This is buying and selling volume clashing together, creating what I like to call a battle candle, which tends to be higher volume just because you have so much activity, but it's on both sides usually. So if we ignore the battle candle, we had a couple of slightly elevated red candles. However, as we came in more and more into that fade, now looking more so through this entire region, as we came into that, much less volatile portion of today, the volume faded and didn't really do much at all until we came into the bottom of, and really the end of what was that volatile, portion of the morning. We saw a little bit of increased volume, perhaps a small, it's hard because we had that green candle to follow that kind of called this move quits, and then we just slowly faded on very little volume for the remainder of the day. But, had this been 4 candles in a row of red volume, that would be some obvious, a little bit of bearish bias. But for me, it gets broken up with that green bar that's, higher than the other two in this what I think a lot of people would look at as slightly bearish bias. It's almost not even worth arguing over. It's so little to begin with. It's just, the truth here today is that the vast majority of today's volume took place while the stock was above $6 a share. I mean, really, or at least pushing up through $6 a share. Once the stock gave up 6, that volume really tapered off. We got a little bit of tapering up into the close, which is expected. This big green bar after the bell, That's rebalancing most likely. It's a very small candle, a lot of buying and selling going on. Again, kind of a battle candle, but usually it's going to be fund and institutional rebalancing that's triggered algorithmically after the closing bell. It just turns into a big pump. We see that on a lot of stocks lately. That big first 5-minute volume bar after the closing bell. So we can kind of ignore that. Now, let's take a look at the 30-minute and look at the psychological levels that I think are going to be incredibly important come Monday. Now, listen, for the past few days, the 50 period, this is a very psychological level on the 30-minute chart, an incredibly popular time frame, so this chart has a lot of eyeballs. That 50 period has been a battle for the last few days. The stock hasn't really been able to reclaim it or give it up. No one has really won this battle yet. The stock has attempted to reclaim it today. We gave it up just very briefly into the close after spending really the entirety of the day above that level and holding it on a couple of tests. But, listen, it's been proof the last few days that a small hold or a small fade below, it just isn't enough. It's not definitive or decisive enough. Here's what I'm really looking for. Bulls. We currently find ourselves about 6.1% away from that 200 period moving average. I expect this will continue to come lower into Monday's trading day, okay, because it's already in such an aggressive downtrend, so that might turn into 4 or 5%, who knows. The biggest power move possible here would be to use the 50 period as kind of a trampoline to rip up through 6 and get above and just be done and just reclaim the 200 period and be done with the 50 period, at least in the very short term. That move would likely require a high amount of volume, right? Or we would likely see that on a move of that size. And an added benefit of that for bulls is it would rip that 50 period, the white line, right, up above $6 a share, most likely, adding an additional downside psychological barrier to that round number. All right, bears, you want that 50 period sitting beneath $6 a share, using that 50 period as kind of a ceiling to reject hard and fade below, holding us off of 6 a share. You bears kind of have that little added benefit of the 50 period being in front of $6 a share, as long as you guys can stay beneath it, right? And use that as a resistance point rather than the kind of trampoline-like effect that the bulls are looking for. Now, let's move on to the 4 hour and see if this one is in play. And we currently find ourselves right in between a channel, in between that 200 period and the 50 period. Listen, both of these require a bit of a move. The 200 period's currently at about $5 a share. The 50 period's coming into $7. Just to save time here in this video, I'm not gonna go through all the scenarios. Just know a downside break of that 200 period for you bears is best case scenario, at least on the 4 hour in particular. And an upside break of that 50 period is best case scenario for you bulls on the 4 hour, okay? But it's a relatively substantial move. The opposite moving average that your bias would, like to break, you want to see hold as a support or resistance level. Okay, bears, you want to see that 50 hold as resistance if tested. Bulls, you want to see the 200 hold as support if tested. Now, let's move on to the most important chart of all, and that's going to be the daily. Okay, the daily paints the most clear image, and it tells us what's the real story on SoundHound here come Monday. To me, if we look here, let's just get more contextual. We gave up 6 here today. We've given it up in the last couple of days, but we were attempting to reclaim it there on Wednesday. We gave it up on Thursday. Okay, heading into the weekend. Monday, to me, is the battle of $6 a share. Bears, any upside test of 6, you want to see a hard high volume rejection. Bulls, ideally come Monday, high volume rip upside through 6, lower volume retest of 6 for that confirmation, a lower sample size betting on that break downside through 6 with the low volume. And then upon the test of 6 or somewhere around 6, doesn't have to be perfect, of course, you get that high volume pull away, confirming with a big sample size that, yep, we're holding 6 here in the near term as a psychological support level. Now, if we take a look at the chain, okay, the next expiration date, okay, after, of course, we had one today, is April 5th. So we don't get, of course, very frequent expirations. They're typically weekly on a stock like this. The expected move by then, which, really is the end of next week, is plus or minus 79 cents per share. So just understand that this is, the expected move, that is a technical term. It's a tool that we can utilize as traders, even equities traders, not necessarily options traders, though it's incredibly helpful to understand this if you are trading options. But there's no directional bias in the expected move calculation. It's priced out by the actual traders through the implied volatility of each expiration. So just understand, but by the end of next week, the traders currently expect the stock to either be 79 cents higher or somewhere around there. It's the one standard deviation expected move, right? Or 79 cents lower. And then we do the analysis, the volume profile, the psychological levels, to try to come up with a directional bias. And then the last thing that we can do here is take a look at the options traders bias. Oh man, it's heavy today. 65,700 total contracts traded out here on Thursday. 47,000 of those were calls. 18,700 approximately were puts. So a heavy call side bias here on SoundHound on Thursday. If we break it down by time frame and go the short-term speculators, the 0 to 20 delta range, I saw somebody left a comment and asked me to, dive a little bit deeper into that, just really quick. The 0 to 20 delta range, those are the furthest out of the money contracts, which on average are going to have the shortest term expiration, on average. So these are people that are betting on big outsized moves with the shortest expiration date. So those are the short-term kind of gambly style bets being placed. And this video being a shorter term, video, really a lot of the channel is focused on a little bit shorter term analysis. In that category, the volume is low. Okay, so take it with a grain of salt. On SoundHound, we're not going to get hundreds of thousands in each range. 6,600 calls in that range and 3,200 puts. So we are seeing more than double the calls in that 0 to 20 delta range compared to puts. So a lot of, a little bit more than double the short-term call side bets being placed than the put side bets. Listen, guys, if your goal here is to try to expedite the process, whether you're trying to go part-time as a trader or maybe even full-time, we've had both. If your goal is to try to expedite that process, I think having a resource, is important. I learned how to trade for free, though it took me a long time, longer than I would have liked, and my market tuition was really high. The link in the pinned comment, that'll allow you to get grandfathered in at the current rate. Of course, you can see all the benefits, my personal scalp setup alerts, in-play stock alerts, unusual options activity, swing trade setup alerts as they come. I work with my Platinum one-on-one members all day long. And, this morning was a bit slower, but one of the in-play stocks that alerted set up a ton of trading opportunity. Later in the day, I alerted AVTX as an in-play stock when it was around 28 bucks a share, and within like 16 minutes, it pushed up to above 34 bucks a share. Caught some trades on that name. So listen, either way, hope to see you join by next week. If not, I encourage you to try to learn on your own for free. I think there is value to be had in doing so. Hope to see you subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on the way out. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.